two of our good citizens. Bruce Carmen died 10 days ago. Some of you don't know Bruce, probably don't know Bruce, but if I say that he is the gentleman that we've seen riding around town on a recumbent bike for the last 10 or 12 years, that's Bruce Carmen. And I've often wondered how in the world he stayed on that thing. I've never had the nerve to try it. But Bruce lived on Pudding Pan, and I didn't know it, but he was an outstanding woodworker. We also lost Dave Peckins, and we all know Dave Peckins. Dave was in town for many years, served the town in Civic Association and the Chickasaw Property Owners Association in so many ways. So in honor of those two guys, let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, I have one change I would like to make to the agenda. Under new business, I propose that we add item H. We did Currituck Bridge. It's a timely subject. There's a new initiative. And we need to explore it this morning. Any other changes to the agenda?
Make a motion that we approve agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You have the consent agenda before you. What is your pleasure? Under tab 1.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Have a motion
Second.
to approve. You need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No public comment, I take it. Old business, we're right down to it. And we're pleased to have the town manager, and he's accompanied by the finance officer. They're going to give us their first draft of the general operating budget for the next fiscal year. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We'll turn to tab 2 in the book. The first,
We're not projecting it, are we?
we will be. Just a couple comments before we present this draft budget, which is, as you know, the county just went through its octennial revaluation as required by state law. These values were determined effective January 1, 2013. New values for the town of Southern Shores are what this budget is based on. The revenue neutral rate, the new rate that I'll announce to you was determined based on the formula prescribed by the general statutes, which means that I determined as budget officer what it takes to pay for last year's budget based on the new valuation and then factoring in an average growth rate over the last 8 years for next year. So once all those factors are taken care of, a new revenue neutral rate, tax rate is determined, and our new tax rate based on this draft budget is 22 cents. As you know, our existing tax rate for the current fiscal year is 16 cents. So again, that is the tax rate, and 1 penny of rate on this budget equals $128,210. 1 penny on the old budget equaled $174,000. So those are the numbers we plug in. And just to remember, The Southern Shores values were, decreased 28%, as was in line nearly with the, county average, so that's an average of 28%. Any citizen's property who decreased more than that may pay less tax when the tax rate is applied. If somebody decreased less than that, they may pay more tax, or they could pay the same. So that's basically what it would be townwide on individual properties. So based on those numbers, I'd like to go through and make a presentation of the numbers and answer questions if we could at the end, but I will try to, some of you have already commented on some lines, and we'll try to edit as we go through. The general fund summary is is page 1, and again, we're working off of the FY 13-14 recommended column, which is the set of numbers on the far right, is what we're presenting today. And again, just for informational purposes, the years to the left are posted for audit purposes. If that's confusing, we can make a change in the presentation next year, but those are set up that way for the auditor's convenience and also for your information on previous years. Under FY 13-14 recommended column, you can see that the projected revenues for ad valorem taxes based on the values there of 2.8 billion, other revenues 2.5, bringing a total of revenue source with the other proceeds there that we factor in for budgetary purposes of $5,728,065. So that would be, we would be looking at a $5.7 million budget today. Expenditures, you can see the summary there of administration department, the code enforcement department, police department, public works department, and then for auditing purposes, we broke it out into another department of streets, bridges, and canals, sanitation services, fire contracted services, ocean rescue, and then a transfer out from the revenue to the capital reserve fund as you directed in your last meeting of $516,000, and that would be designated for streets only, $516,000. So our total operating expenses there would be balanced at $5,728,065. This budget does not call for a tax increase. It is balanced as presented to you today without a tax increase. If there are any questions on the summary page, we can turn, unless there are any, we can go on to the next page, which breaks out our revenues. Again, on that same column, ad valorem taxes, based on property taxes and vehicle taxes, 2.8 million. The next item is the occupant sales tax and land transfer tax, which was governed by state statutory formula, as appropriated by Dare County. And you can see these are projections that are given to us by the Dare County Finance Officer based on his computations for occupancy tax, local option sales, and then land transfer tax, bringing a total projected revenue of 1.916610. The next item is the unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, and you can see those individual items: utilities, franchise tax, video programming tax, telecommunications, and the PEG channel revenue, which is a wash. We'll show you that in a minute. ABC revenues, beer and wine tax, and then the solid waste disposal tax, totaling $327,300. And then at the bottom, the restricted intergovernmental revenues, which is our power bill allocation from the state of North Carolina, $114,000 based on our road mileage. And the next revenue down for this year would be a series of grants, which are put in basically safety and wellness, and then our bike and pedestrian planning grant, which some of these, as we put in designate grants, they may or may not happen. So if they don't happen, they would just come out.
you one question, not about your numbers or anything, but whatever's going on in the legislature, whatever they may come up with that could impact that, would that be, mean this would be changed? I mean, are they gonna resolve whatever it is, and that we would then take a look at it?
Yes, ma'am. Anything that they change, we would have to adjust for.
But it'd be effective like this year, not like January 1?
It depends on how they pass the
Okay, so it's just one of those up in the air?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Page 3, for revenues again, shows you our projected permits and fees. Building permits, up, projected to be up $75,000. Plan review fees, reinspection fees, county fees, planning board fees, encroachment agreement fee, revenue that we get, court costs and fees, parking and other fines. Total revenues there, $92,100 projected. None of the other revenues you'll see, interest income, charter communications, facility rents for this building, and we have a miscellaneous item of various different revenues.
Miscellaneous, I mean, that can be different things. Sometimes, like if we are reimbursed for something, we have to put that in for miscellaneous. The bulkhead leases are the leases that we get $5 per year from those citizens. And then insurance proceeds, we don't budget anything for those because that's only if something happens, which we hope doesn't, and then we get insurance money. So that's why there's no money budgeted in there per se.
Okay, so the total revenues before transfer are 5.3, which matches the item on the front page. For the other financial sources are added to it. Any questions we could answer about the total projected revenues? Page 4 is we started to projected expenses by department. And the first is the admin department. Under FY 13-14 again, recommended is the cost we're working off of. Again, we have plugged in the items that the council has directed us to plug in, so any changes here will be reflective of that. Salaries, and then of course the associated FICA and group health insurance, employee retirement, merit program is the first item that you directed us to plug in for the year. And that'll be administered, if you pass this budget, that'll be administered throughout the year in a certain system that you come up with administratively. Unemployment payments at $15,000. Those drop slightly from a year ago. Contract services, council compensation, legal services, audit services, payroll services, computer services as per our contract, insurance and bonds, advertising throughout the year, travel line, telephone line, utilities, dues and subscriptions, training, supplies, postage, and equipment lease and maintenance. And again, municipal elections, we have another election year this year. Dare County tax collection, which is based on a 1.5, I believe, for collections by the county. The next line will be a change. The government access channel, I believe that figure should be 32.
Correct.
Instead of 25. Government access channel membership, town code update, vehicle operations, employee recognition and appreciation, wellness initiative, and then we skip down to contingency, which we started plugging that in. And then we skip down to recording of meetings, which is our first full year of having that service. And can see the total there, 923, 950 for administration.
I want to ask questions while we're going page by page, or wait to the end?
Please, let's do it now.
Okay, get it done. On salaries, that increase of, that's the COLA increase for
Yes,
that
sir,
part?
2.5.
Okay. The insurance and bond, that increase is of, four?
These are a 10% increase. I have not gotten my true numbers. I normally do not get those in until about the end of May. So these are my best guesstimate. They may not be that much of an increase, hopefully not, but I always budget 10% increase because it's normally between 8 and 10.
Is our workman's compensation costs in that line?
No, our workman's compensation is in the insurance and bonds. You can see it went from
That's what I
65 to
mean.
83.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's
Oh,
what I'm talking
I'm
about. That's
sorry,
what I mean.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I
That's okay.
misunderstood your
No,
question.
no problem.
Yes, sir. That is an $18,000 increase for the next 3 years.
Okay, all right. Just want to know where that was coming from.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay. And I'm gonna, take the liberty of asking our department heads to come sit beside me so they can answer any questions y'all may have to as we get through these. So, Wes, do you mind coming down? Thought it might be easier to do it that way. Answer any questions. Next is code enforcement and inspections. And we're, again, working off the FY 13-14 recommended. You see the first line there, salaries, and then the associated expenses with that, FICA, group health insurance, employee retirement. Contracted services, just for explanation, is our contract with Dare County to provide inspection, building inspection, and fire inspection services for the town of Southern Shores.
I'd call council's attention to the fact that the $16,000 is in lieu of the full-time building inspector that we released 2 years ago. And no complaints from builders?
No, sir.
Travel line, do some subscriptions, training, uniforms, supplies, vehicle maintenance and repair, vehicle operations, homeowners recovery fee. Tell them what that is.
Required by statute to include that. I'm not sure what the figure is.
And that's tacked on to the fees.
Yes.
And we
yes.
submit it, yes.
That's tacked on to their fees. Flood zone map mailing, contingency, equipment purchase, and then bike path, the bike and pedestrian planning grant. Again, showing up as a expense if we get the grant coming out of that department. The total budget for that department will be $227,420.
So if you get the grant and that happens, would pay actually $7,000, is that right? With 28 coming from the,
It's an 80-20 grant, so we
Okay.
would, yes, we would be paying 7,000, reimbursed 28, correct.
And what's the status of that?
We haven't heard, we're not supposed to hear, recipients won't be notified until they said June.
Until June?
June, correct. So, keeping our fingers crossed until then.
Employee retirement, this is actually for Bonnie at one point. If we run it across the board, what do we pay out in town? About $200,000 a year for employee retirement, 880,000 around that, off the top of your head, as a
I've
group,
got it right here, hold on.
our retirement cost?
Because we have, state retirement and we have 401K. And the state retirement, rate actually went up, so that's part of the increase on the state retirement, but, it's, let's see. Yes, it's about 175.
I have one question over here, the amount of money for, where is it? It's $3,500, 37. Vehicle, no, that wasn't that one. Oh, well, equipment purchase, $2,900. What are we buying for $2,900?
That, what is that, that's the
It's
server?
it's for an external drive, a storage device for, where flood zone requirements are gonna be getting more and more strict, and it's been recommended that we have somewhere where we store certain documents electronically as opposed to just hard copies. So this is for the purchase of a commercial grade scanner to scan the documents as well as an external storage device.
Now, we have most of our equipment, if not all of it, is leased, correct?
Most of the computer equipment is not ours, right?
Right.
We're actually under our lease.
So this will be, we can't lease this also and just throw it into the same kitty?
Do you know, Sheila?
They didn't say that option, no. We have another NAS device which we use for, everything that's in the vault. We put all that storage on there, so
Okay.
the code enforcement would have the same thing. They need to scan that whole back room, all those files.
Gotcha.
The historical files, a lot of the flood zone certificates,
Okay,
elevation
gotcha.
certificates, that's basically what
And you're
we're
gonna back this
looking
up
at.
to the cloud when you get done?
This would, well, I would assume, yes, sir.
Okay, I would hope.
Yes, sir.
Something happens, all your work goes to hell. Okay.
Any other questions for code enforcement and Justice Department project expenses?
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Next will be the police department. Steve, I appreciate it. Again, we're working off the FY 13-14 recommended column. The salaries reflect the changes that have been made with the additional officers that council has authorized for this past FY or fiscal year. So that figure and then the associated expenses with salaries, holiday overtime, FICA, group health insurance, and employees' retirement. You can see a career development line. Then we show computer services. Again, all the merit line, just for your information, all of it was grouped together under admin for administrative purposes. That's why that's flatlined down. Computer services, printing, advertising, travel, dues and subscriptions, training, medical testing, uniforms, supplies, contracted services. This year, there's no lease and maintenance, but we do have equipment purchase. If you want, Alan, tell me, can you just give an example of equipment purchase?
Well, we're gonna be replacing three of our MDTs, which are our laptops in the police vehicles. We have three that are almost 6 years old now. So that will fall under the equipment. We also have built into that through Socians, we've got two desktop PCs that need to be replaced as well. And a couple of radar units.
Okay. In vehicle maintenance and repair, vehicle operations, which is operations.
That's the
Yes.
fuel.
Just so you know that line of actual fuel costs. We have a contingency line again, as we started that, last year. The debt service, yeah, right, okay, Bonnie, go ahead, do those next two lines of debt service.
Okay, the debt service is the actual, annual payments that are due on the leases that we have. And then the capital outlay on the vehicles, that's the in and out. If you remember on the summary page, it showed lease proceeds of $74,000. This is the expense side of it. So we just have, this is auditing purposes, this is how we have to show that.
Okay, I'm lost.
You're lost?
I'm lost.
Debt service is the loan on the vehicle.
Yes, that.
So the debt service is the lease on the 3 police cars?
Yes, sir.
3 police cars. The capital outlay is for what police car, or what will we doing with police cars? Or what-
The vehicles, okay, the debt service is for the vehicles that we already have. The capital outlay vehicles are for the vehicles that we're purchasing this year.
So now you got an old existing loan that we're servicing and then the new loan on the rotation.
Okay. Are we getting any new vehicles this year?
Two.
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 Okay.
We're doing 3 a year.
Two this year.
2 this year,
3 last year.
3 last year, actually 2 last year. We tried to do 3, we lost 2 in the flood, and so we ate one pretty much because what it was worth when they totaled it was really. We're trying to maintain the 2 vehicle replacement rotation, so.
And what are we buying?
Well, you're pretty limited what you can buy now.
Are we going car, or are we going?
We're looking at a Charger and probably another 2-wheel drive Tahoe. Those 2-wheel drive Tahoes are actually getting better gas mileage than any other vehicle that we have right now. And the resale value is much greater on those.
Is there any thought about going, not painting them and just going, normal stock color, you know? Would that save any money? I'm just asking. Or would it only be painted vehicles?
It costs about $375
paint 'em?
to decal them. They don't even paint them anymore. We actually are having them wrap them so that when we do turn it into an unmarked, we don't have to have it repainted. We just take the wrap off of it. So that'll save us some money there too.
All right.
And this is actually the final year on the 3 payments. The debt service will be 91, so in the next few years, because we've got a payment schedule here, it'll just be the 2.
I didn't know that was gonna be my next question.
Yep, I knew that.
Thank you.
You can see the other item that is required, separation allowance, which transfers to the pension fund for police officers, especially. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the building, I apologize. Capital outlay of building, that was put in for you to consider. I proposed that to you. The chief made that proposal to you several months ago for an addition to the police department.
He made it several years ago.
Made it several years ago, sure did. This is about the 3rd year, as I recall, that he had brought that up.
Affirmative.
Okay. I proposed to you this. This is a balanced budget. I did initially have this shown as being a transfer from capital reserve fund. However, I will propose that to you as a capital project with the canals. We're required by both the lender and the local government commission to make some improvements on town-owned assets as part of that loan. The law requires us to do that to be able to qualify for that type of loan because we have limited assets owned by the town of Southern Shores. So we've got to make some improvements to this complex anyway. I want to propose that figure go into the actual loan, and you'll see in a minute when we get to the canal project why that is. It's because we've got such a low bid, qualified bid on the canal, we're saving a lot of money. So I would propose that be included in the debt for that project.
So if you do that, well, you're gonna propose it, so we can discuss it then, right, when you propose it, okay?
If we do that, that would mean that it doesn't come out of capital reserve fund.
Does that mean that we don't have to dish out $130,000?
So we still got to show it as expense, but it's just coming in from a loan proceed, a loan.
Right, but we don't have to use, let's say, tax dollars for $130,000, other than the payment for it.
Correct.
We would get it from the borrowed money instead of the capital reserve fund, correct? Yes, sir.
So it's theoretically possible to reduce the tax rate by 1 cent.
We can, the difference, the council can do, obviously, what it wants to do. My recommendation and proposal to you would be that what we're saving go back into the capital reserve fund. And not as a street, not as anything, but a capital reserve fund contribution, that what we're saving. We'll get to that in a minute, you'll see the difference. Good question, and, that's what we're gonna try to leapfrog us into that, but that's exactly what we're proposing.
130,000 is based on some current estimate.
Yes, I got three estimates, and probably the most complete one was by Sykes Construction. He had given me the estimate about 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. I called him, asked him what type of an increase since then. He said estimate roughly 13 to 15% for material increases. Labor, and that would pretty much be around the same price. So we've come up with 130,000.
But there, and you could certainly correct me, but as far as I understand it, there is no architectural structure, there's no there's no formulated building construction, building plans, et cetera. And so to know exactly what that cost might be, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we don't really know when we get done with the schematics, the whole thing, whatever we need, water, sewage, I have no idea, electricity,
Yeah,
whatever, we don't have really.
I can tell you that it's probably gonna be a lot less than that.
Okay.
Because our people, I don't wanna commit public works, we can save probably $5,000 to $6,000 by painting the outside and the inside of that building ourselves. So there's some costs. We're not gonna insulate the bottom, the garage part, that's gonna save about $500.
Theoretically, however, since we're busy charging each other in this budget, with the cemetery fund being charged by the public works, et cetera, theoretically, you should be also charged for your painting by the public works too, theoretically, right? I mean, if we're paying Peter to, pull in one set of departments, should we not transfer it across the other?
Well,
It would just be a journal entry to transfer
okay.
salaries,
Right,
that
I mean,
portion.
yeah.
Yeah, we talked
buildings
about,
and grounds.
we talked about that a couple of years ago. Since we only have 4 departments and 20-some employees, we've kind of made administrative decisions not to show you an expense from department to department.
And the auditor's not requiring you to show it that way, so.
Just one further comment on the building. The estimate is not based on some idea that's up here in the clouds. There is a sketch plan that was used by the,
I know that, I saw that 2 years ago. I'm
sketch
just-
plan.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not a written architecturally designed.
Correct,
building,
yeah, I'm not, that's just if you wanna pass that around, that's just a schematic, it's not to scale. But I couldn't commit any monies to having anything drawn up until I know for sure we're gonna.
Anybody have any questions on projected police department expenses for the year? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Page 7 will be our streets, bridges, and canal department, if you will. Okay, this page 7 is based on audit recommendations. We cut these out and show them separately from actual other expenses from Public Works. Again, this budget does not project an expense for payment of the work done on Trinity Culver Bridge. It's my recommendation that we wait on an invoice for that and then take that up as we did last year as an expense that we would refer paying out of fund, designated fund balance when that expense comes. So that's not part of this budget, but we're showing that as a line just so everybody recalls that. We have a line for bridge maintenance, we have a line for street sign maintenance, and we have this line, the third line down is street maintenance, which the council directed be increased for the year, several meetings back. In meeting with Mr. Sawyer on that, that's the figure we came up with, that we could basically do a hodgepodge of repairs throughout the town, throughout the year, as he sees pothole, edging, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically why we put that in there, rather than making continuous budget amendment requests when we came on the things during the year.
it's primarily material.
Yes, sir. Primary materials, yes, sir.
The Tall Pine Bridge expense, what that is, as you recall, we're now in that project of replacing Tall Pine Bridge, which is gonna be a municipal bridge replacement project. We're in a contract with Kimley Gordon. We had a projected expense for this year to pay for the engineering cost, and then they call us a match grant, that we're spending off of, but we have to show the full expenditures. That's what we project to show as a payout for this coming calendar year. And of course, there's a revenue side of that as well, which is the feds matching our expense. So that's what we project out total for the payout expenses for Tall Pine Bridge, and then of course, again, there's a revenue side of that. Engineering cost is our general engineering that we've been paying out during the year, and I call brush trimming and
That,
tree.
not project related.
Yes, sir.
Related to what?
That's when somebody calls our engineer and wants to ride and look at bridges and streets, and when he comes up with projects that are not capital when we come up with projects that are not capital projects and we utilize the engineer, is the way we've been using that line during the year.
This was basically the things we talked about when we're talking about a town engineer, having it
That's
kind
right.
of an aside, maybe like,
That's right, and we have him under contract for that now. You made that selection during the year, so we just,
When he is inspected and contracts enforced and underway, that's charged to the project.
typically, if we've created a line for it in that particular project, it is. There are some projects that don't have engineering lines that are small enough or medium-sized that will come out of this line.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So for example, going out to Deer Path and inspecting Deer Path of late, would that be out of the 42,000 or out of the Deer Path cost of construction?
That would come out of the Deer Path. We projected that as an
All right.
engineering line. And, anything we don't spend obviously goes back into fund balance, but that's what we project for.
it's sort of a contingency fund for engineering.
Right. And it's being used, because I
Yeah.
was surprised as we look at it over the years, how often the town engineer is called on outside of projects.
Prime example is that swell we installed on Trinity. We did the work, but Joe told us how to do it. That's a prime example of things like that pop up, that we don't necessarily need a full-blown project for that particular area, where we can just utilize Joe and Public Works can do the labor.
Okay.
Can we just jump back up to bridge maintenance? That $1,500, is that
Inspection,
inspection by the state?
every 2 years.
Right, that comes in, that's what we charge, okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, what happens if they come along and say you need to fix X, Y, and Z?
We have to fix it.
So, I mean, where was that, where's the line item for that?
That's coming out of undesignated fund balance.
Okay,
I'll
gotcha.
bring you a new line at that
Okay.
meeting when we're required to do
That's
that.
what happened when we started Tall Pine, because it came
That's
out
right.
of
Right.
one of those inspections.
Just making sure.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go into the Public Works Department. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm sorry, I skipped.
We got the canal.
I'm sorry, okay, under canals, I've skipped canals.
Good amount of money there.
All right, as you will see in a minute on the agenda, that line, 478,330, that was our projected 7-year annual payment on debt service based on a $3 million canal dredging project. Upcoming on the agenda is a recommendation to you that we award, contingent award, a bid to a certain contractor. That contractor came in extremely lower than what we had anticipated. So that debt service payment is going to be reduced drastically, almost cut in half. When I present this to you in 2 weeks, that'll be half of that payment, essentially. So again, that money is money that we're saving based on the budget. So that'll come up in discussion. So that figure will change. And I just want the public to see that. It's under canals, canal dredging project 478,330. Again, that's debt service based on a $3 million project on a 7-year amortization. So that will drastically reduce. And so the bottom.
It will be cut by 50% according to my calculation.
Yes, sir.
It will become 239,000. And, well, I'll hold comment. I have some other comments on that item, but I'll hold them until the presentation.
If there are any other questions on the streets, canals, and bridges? Okay, Public Works, far right column, one recommended. The first item reflects the cost of a director position that the council directed me to budget for, and that shows you what we have put in. Mr. Sawyer will continue doing exactly what he's doing as far as maintenance and grounds and supervising his staff. This new position would take over as basically the director of the Public Works Department, which would include contract administration for all the infrastructural contracts that we have in town going on. He would also administer, or he or she would also administer the sanitation work that we have as far as garbage contract, recycle contract, and the chipping contract, and any other items that would fall typically under the purview of Public Works. So this new position would handle street surveys and work closely with the town engineer or engineer under contract on coming up with priorities for upcoming years for capital improvement, and would, again, administer the ongoing infrastructural contracts that we have. Right now, my plan is to house that position in Town Hall, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, we can accommodate that with an existing room that we have. So that's the salary for that is included in that line, and then, of course, the associated lines of FICA, group health, employee retirement, engineering services, training, we skip advertising, training, travel, uniforms, then we go to supplies, safety compliance, bridge maintenance we take that out of this department and put it in the previous department of streets, canals, and bridges. So that's how you'll see that shift over the next couple of years' budgets. Town buildings, maintenance and repairs, beautifications of beautification line.
Let's talk about that. May I have a question? Is there a plan for the use of that money?
Okay, I'm gonna get Jason to comment on how he uses the
Is there a
beautification.
design?
Which one? The buildings or
Beautification.
the
Beautification?
The beautification is used, that's what purchases our mulch, when we're doing new projects, landscape fabric, it also buys our pesticides and herbicides, flowers for planting at Town Hall, installation of the new landscapes, irrigation, we have a lot to do on the irrigation out here because of our well. That deals with all the town medians, the town sign, and everything but the cemetery.
As far as a response to how we've been doing this during the year, Jason and I would discuss his priority for town medians and town right-of-ways, because that seems to be what people are interested in seeing beautified. And he'll hit those based on a priority of when he can get to them based on the other requirements for his department, so and demand for that particular area. So I would say there's not a plan to beautify the western half of the town in one calendar year, no, sir. But there is a plan as he comes up with during the year to hit the certain spots such as medians, intersections, and right-of-ways that we discuss. You can comment on how we prioritize those.
Right now, what we're doing, mostly what I've been doing the last 3 years is trying to get what we've got already back up to par. Especially with the buildings and the medians. A lot of the plants that were used on the medians are not the right plants. They were too large of plants. We're spending way too much time maintaining them. Instead of planting them side by side, had one plant been used right in the center, we would be good. But there was just too many plants planted and too large of plants. So we're spending a lot of time maintaining these plants, a lot more than what we should be. So what we're doing is we're slowly but steadily, and we're kind of spreading the love around too. We're not focusing just on one median. We're trying to focus on all the medians to slowly pull the plants out that are way too large to be next to a street, and then slowly replacing them back as the money seems fit with proper plants that'll free us up a whole lot more. So we're not continuously pruning these medians and trying to take care of them. It also aids in the it's easier to keep the weeds out when we're able to move. Just like the junipers on Dogwood, they need to come out because they were too many of them planted, and they're beyond the point of a renovation to back looking good. So we're trying to get everything back up to par, looking good and easy to maintain, so we can continue on with other things too, and not spend so much time in all these areas.
Does that include planning around the sign?
We're, still waiting on plans to come in. That's kind of a hard one because I only have 2.5 foot, and those are, smaller plants, and with, smaller plants, you have, lesser cold tolerance when they're in a pot, so they're kept in other areas and they're not ready to come back out. So as soon as they're ready, they can come out, the signs will be planted.
Okay, no problem.
Right now, we have, what's available are plants that'll be way too large for the sign, and we'll be in the same boat that I'm in on all the rest of the medians.
Can we just jump back up to the top of this, thing, that director's job? Is he also gonna be going out to the streets and talking to the people regarding on the street work, like you have done and the staff has
Yes.
done? And we'll be out there supervising and watching the construction of the roads to make sure that things are done correctly?
Yeah, that will be that
Okay.
position, that person's
Will you also do
responsibility.
dredging?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anything infrastructure related, that person would be, the public works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he has a vast quantity of things to do. Engineering services, $5,000.
What do we use that
Where does that come into play
for?
compared to the other engineering
Actually-
prices?
Actually, this is the general money that we use for non-specific projects, and I did a little bit differently this year. The 42,000 is 8% of the 516.
So that's a correction from, yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke on that. On the previous line, that is the 8% coming out of the 516, so that amount would be included in projects. So this is the amount. Can you give us a history of this? You can see, last year was $5,000 was what we budgeted, so we're doing that again. I'm sorry, that was my error
That's okay.
in
Town
explaining it.
building maintenance and repairs, we've doubled up from 16,000 to 32. Why did we double up by 16,000?
That is for the extra carpet through here and to replace the porch at the police department.
The porch in the police department, we're getting all kinds of buildings now, porches now too.
It's-
And the
it's-
rockers also?
It's in bad shape. It's getting to the point that screws won't even hold it down.
Okay.
So it's real bad. We've got some bad trip areas. There's also the steps are real funny. I don't know if you've ever walked up them before, but that's to get the steps in a better traveling mode, replace the railing and everything. That'll replace the carpet in this building, fix this area where the settling is happening.
Okay.
I remember when the chief told us about the new building, talking about the present garage is termite ridden. What about the police department itself? Is
So
that the
far,
same?
we're good. I haven't seen any termite damage and I haven't received any reports from,
The police department is treated annually and inspected for termites, as well as this building too.
I thought it was.
All of buildings, actually.
Okay.
Mayor, do you have any other questions or comments on?
Well, I still have a question about that $45,000 with that
We had-
amount of expenditure, under miscellaneous. And as you describe it, it seems to me like it could be funded as a separate project in and of itself.
Yes, sir, I was gonna comment on that next. Bonnie, if you can give us what that 45,000 represents.
The
and then-
45,000 represents, the new electronic key system for all of the buildings, new chairs here at the Pitt Center, and tables. That's what the $45,000 is for.
And since that is for improvements to these buildings, I'm gonna propose that 45,000, be included in the capital project for the town hall complex in addition to the police building. So that would be put under the loan for the canal and town hall project together.
I buy that idea. That makes sense.
So-
Would that also then include some like carpeting and the floor repair here? Should that be considered? I mean, pieces of that 32,000? And I'm just asking the question, you don't need to answer now, but maybe we should consider that as,
The project is to upgrade town hall.
yeah,
yes, sir.
something, pieces of that.
So
maybe
let's
should go.
call the project upgrades at town hall.
We do not have year for town buildings. Hold on just a minute, I've got that report right here. Currently, what we budgeted was $16,200. As of today, we've already spent almost $21,000, thus we didn't have enough in there to begin with. So what my understanding and from my notes that I have here, we have upped that for, mainly for the police department porch and the regular stuff that comes up now and then that needs to be replaced, and then, you know, in all three of these, four of the town-owned buildings, plus the police porch. The $45,000 includes the renovations. This is where I have the carpet budget.
Okay, anything,
Carpet, the lock, the key lock system, the chairs, the tables, all that stuff in here is what's budgeted in the $45,000. What's budgeted in the town maintenance and repairs is just general every day-to-day stuff, and we also bumped that up to include the police department, but we didn't have enough in there to begin with.
well, anything in that 32,000, I'll look at. If there's
Yeah.
anything capital, I'll pull it in and propose it in the capital project ordinance in
Yes.
2 weeks.
I just don't like to see 10% of the budget listed as miscellaneous.
Yeah. I'm all for that too. I think we're gonna do porch replacements and building
Yeah,
additions.
let's
Define a
change that
project.
We
name,
should throw it into
please.
one category and isolate it so we all know
Just put
what
that
it
as
is.
town, that'll be called town hall improvement projects or something.
Might have a good go
Yeah.
improvement projects, period. And throw, I mean. make
Town
a whole
hall
category
upgrades,
roads and
or
everything.
whatever you want to call it.
Bridges, roads, everything.
Yes, don't call it that. Town hall.
Subcategorize it according to whatever you want.
And we'll make that change for sure. Then we had a contingency line, again, medical testing, and the storm debris cleanup line comes off of this, and it's shown up in another spot in the budget, so that'll be a correction. That storm debris cleanup line will come out of this particular page. And parking lot maintenance, again, $5,000. So all these adjustments will be made for that particular page.
What do we do with that 5,000 for that parking lot?
You're on, Jason.
That's where we get Skyline and Ocean View lit.
Oh, that's the crushing, whatever.
That's
they
your
put-
question, Ron.
oh,
What
okay.
we're doing is several of the parking lots are just the side of the road that have never been improved whatsoever. So we have several that are mud holes that you don't want to park there. So what we're doing is we're clearing the area, we're putting landscape fabric down, we're edging them where it's fit. Skyline and Ocean View Loop, because of the location of the utilities, we couldn't edge without moving utilities, so that's not something that Public Works is gonna get in if we can just do it, but it's to make them easier.
So this is for
to park.
further, you're not paying for Skyline Ocean View out of this 5,000?
Yeah, this is
further,
for to
other ones.
continue on to
Okay,
the rest
gotcha,
of them.
yeah.
because
Because that
pretty
looks
much
good,
a
I
lot-
mean, that makes it good for parking, not an issue.
And a lot of them are, they're in bad shapes, they've got holes that are big enough to fit a whole car in, so we want people to be
That's why
able
you
to
should,
park and
you should
utilize
park in
these.
those holes, it works out very well. The sand fencing and grass planting, I see that we've removed that 10,000 out of there. Why don't we do sand fencing? We've moved it elsewhere, what happened here?
Well, as you know, that was a wash anyway. We were getting that from the occupancy tax money. This will be the second year that we have not put sand fencing up. And that was my decision. Basically, we put it up 2 years ago, and it was gone in 3 months. The second year that it was gone. I had observed that we will possibly in previous years, have been putting it up in the wrong places, on private lots, and based on the beach condition right now, I just made a decision not to do it, but we can do it if we want to, if we absolutely want
Well, I'm
to.
just wondering, do we need that line there? I mean,
No, we don't need that line
Okay,
there.
we-
Basically, it's there because, as I said before.
Yeah, it has to
Should-
be there because this all ties back to the summary page. So
Okay.
there were a few things Peter's like, do we have to have that? I'm like, yeah, it all ties back to my summary
So
page.
3 years from now, we
Sorry.
won't need that line there,
Exactly.
basically?
But we can't, let me make a correction. That's what the auditor's recommending.
Right.
I mean, I can come in here with a budget next year that doesn't have those years on it, if that's what we want. I just didn't want y'all to get confused about years in the past, but we can totally present this in a different context next year.
But if we decide we need to do, because of what's happening at the beach, fencing and grass planting and so forth, that fund is sitting there. So it's not necessarily taxpayer dollars that would have to be added to it, is that correct?
Well, it's taxpayers' dollars, but it's not
I
Southern Shores
understand that, but
Avalon
it's in there, but
tax.
It's the interest on that sales tax
Right.
that was turned back.
The county is having discussions right now. I just had a meeting with, phone meeting with the county manager this morning. There may be a change of how that fund is handled in the future. Right now, if we want money for sand, fencing, and vegetation, it is available. So, if we want money for that.
So we can get it from the county.
And we get it from the beach,
Right.
shoreline
It's a
commission
shoreline
money,
management.
shoreline management money. yeah.
We want it for, it's for beach preservation.
Right.
If we want it, if we have a need for that expense, we can apply for it.
Good. All right.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, we'll go to page 9, sanitation services. Most of this is contract expense. Residential collection is by Dare County, and commercial collection is by Dare County. Landfill tip and fee, of course, that money goes through the county to RSWA, Albemarle Regional Health Services, Regional Health. Recycling collection is under our current existing contract. We have a contingency line. We also have a large item pickup line.
Which one?
The large item pickup, because that'll be the question about why that's under contract.
Yeah, the large item pickup is actually, done by the, people that do our recycling. And, they do it twice a year. It's $1,500 each time that they do it. So that's where the $3,000 comes in. But it is actually under the same contract as our recycling.
They, I don't think this is directly related to this site. Well, it may be. I understood they were going to pick up bagged yard debris,
Yes, sir.
and the large item pickup is gone, come and gone, but there's still a lot of bagged debris.
Actually, we had lots of calls on that yesterday. Sheila, got up with them, and they're actually coming back with a truck to do that today because they had to have a separate truck from the recyclables.
Okay.
Shipping service. That's the contract expense. That contract will be up for negotiation in 2014.
This is where the auditor wanted that placed.
I have a question. Do we have issues with chips around town, being dumped around town? Is there a problem with that?
There is a concern of chips being placed in right-of-way. I will tell you, I've been here 3 years, and I will use the word impossible to enforce, because we have midnight dumpers dumping it in right-of-ways. And it's on properties where the homeowner either is here or not here. Our chipper does not do that,
Okay.
but it gets dumped, and we get calls, and I cannot enforce that.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not.
Yeah,
asking
it's
what you're
just-
talking about.
I know,
But
it's
Do we
the-
have a problem with this, our chipper putting out chips?
No.
Okay.
Not unless they're requested, he doesn't do
We
that.
got out of the, town got out of the intermediary business of chips, so we're out of the chip business, but he's been instructed not to dump, he knows not to dump any right away if he's requested himself.
Correct, but have we got out of the chip business that, to the point that he takes the chips away no matter what people want, and he takes them away and discards them, and if people want their own chips, they go buy mulch or get their own chips by their own means?
He will dispose of the chips. If a citizen calls him as a third-party contractor and says, hey, if you got chips, bring it to me, he may or may not take it to him, but he disposes of it anyway.
So the
But if
town
he
no
does that, he
longer-
won't do that in the right of way, as I
That's correct.
remember from we
That's
discussed
right.
it before.
But he will not do it in the town's name.
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
out
so
of the chip
There's
business.
actually no chipping involved with him anymore, with coming in, that's a separate deal between the people. And so it's our function at that point to now try to, not talking about the illegal dumpers.
Right.
But between him and wherever he dumps it and what's happening to those chips, that becomes our responsibility at that point, if people are putting this stuff into the right of way.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
I drove by someplace yesterday, and I can't remember where, and there was 3 great big piles of chips. right in a row, three
Yeah.
great big ones. But the other thing that's being dumped by people other than residents, I'm convinced, are the branches themselves to be chipped. There's great big piles of them, for example, in the Civic Association property up at Hillcrest and Hickory. Yeah, there's a great big long pile, and they're dumping everything, including pampas grass clippings, and, but we don't know who's doing it.
It's,
Something's in the works right now to catch that particular.
Good for you.
We do have a police department.
Yeah.
is there any question about our services on that page, page 9?
What sign? Dumb as a shot.
Yeah, they already stole it.
Dumb at your own
They
risk.
already stole one sign when we said it was gonna be controlled by camera,
Right.
and then they stole the camera.
Thank you, Jason, appreciate it. Page 10 is our fire department services. I wanted to call your attention to the revenue neutral rate that's used in this, because that's so prevalent in their contract. The new revenue neutral rate is .0371 cents. You can see that generates $475,505, which is the current contract rate, or rate of payment. So the fire department submitted its budget. It calls for no increase in funding for the year. So that will be the revenue neutral rate there that will generate that amount of revenue. Also, you can see the town committed payment there for the 800 megahertz radios of the $50,000, which is an extra expense.
Is that the fourth year for it, or the fifth year for it? It is the fourth year, so it'll be one more year when we'll see that. Okay.
So that's the total fire department outlay, 505. Any questions on any part of that?
And that levy right there that you mentioned, that is part of the 22 cents
Yes.
that, from the beginning.
Oh, yes,
Do you
exactly.
remember what the old one was, that matches the .03, was it like?
2 3/4.
2 3/4, okay.
So yeah, an increase of 2 3/4 to that .0371 on the revenue neutral computation. Page 11 is ocean rescue services. And that is his contract, the ocean rescue, $156,000.
Is that the last year of this contract?
Is that one?
I've got one
Last
more
year
year.
of this contract?
I think it is one more year.
One more year after this.
He's on a calendar year, so
Yeah, it switches. Yeah.
No change in coverage, no change in dates, no.
We had a meeting last week. The plan is, on May 15th, around May 15th, we'll have beach rovers, which are the ATVs on the beach. And then the stands will go up, right before Memorial Day. And we'll have 4 stands again, like we did last year, 4 hard stands. My plan is to, when Chief Cole engages community resources officers, to have a meeting, of course, with staff and the CRO and the chief, to go over the various items that we want covered and to make sure everybody has been introduced to everybody, so that when they start up Memorial Day, everybody will be there. But we will have lifeguard service before that in the form of ATV roving.
Will they come down here and introduce themselves like last year?
I will hopefully plan on that. As soon as the new hires are all here, I'd like to do that.
And it'll run through similar to what it did before, September 15th with rovers afterwards or something?
That's
like that?
right.
Yeah, okay.
He has rovers through the middle of October, but the stands will come down actually after Labor Day, the actual hard stands. I did want to comment, when the budget comes back to you in 2 weeks, there will be another section for a capital project, which will be the canal. And I'm jumping ahead, but there will be a canal capital project ordinance component to our budget ordinance as required by law. And so there will actually be a canal project sheet here as well, to show you the actual cost, projected cost for the contract, which we're getting ready to get into a minute, for removal and disposal of dredge material out of the 5 miles of canals, the engineering cost associated with that, the subaquatic vegetation survey, that's a requirement of our permit for that, and the contract performance surveys, which are before and after surveys that will be a cost for the town, as well as the town hall improvements that we discussed and tweaked and misspoke about, and we tried to correct. So that'll be in there, 45,000, as well as the building, the police department building for 130,000. So that'll be a separate project sheet that'll be attached to this budget that we'll consider as well when I present it again. So that will come up to be about a little over $1.5 million as opposed to $3 million that we had projected before. So that will be a great savings for the town. So that'll be a separate sheet. Just want to make sure everybody knew that.
Will not result in any increase in the bottom line
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. This
for the
budget-
fiscal year.
Correct.
I mean, that theoretically makes sense, because you get a director of all these capital improvements, then that would be the line budget that he'd be responsible for. That page would be his responsibility besides Public Works page.
That's
That would
correct.
make sense.
Correct. So that position's job would be, a responsibility would be to oversee and administer these infrastructural contracts during the year, and then make a plan, constantly make a plan for us to consider each year.
Is it, well, we can talk about that in closed session, no problem. Just had an idea.
So that will be, that's my draft budget. If there's anything that council desires to direct me to plug in as the budget officer or take out, I would propose to you that this would be a good time. We continue to roll through it. My plan is to present to you the budget the first meeting in May, first full meeting in May, make a presentation, and then after that, you can decide when we want to do public hearing. As in the past, you have adopted the first meeting in June.
We have plenty of time to set a public hearing following your next presentation.
That would be,
One thing that is bugging me about this revenue stream is that I hear talk of other towns going beyond the revenue neutral rate in order to protect their share of the shared revenues that we receive from the county. I'm reluctant to take a final vote on this budget until maybe we get a little bit more indication of how they're going to go, because they could considerably eat into our budgeted amounts for those shared revenues. So we'll hold off on a public hearing until the first meeting in June, I would hope. And maybe act on the budget at our second meeting in June.
Yeah,
That's the way I'm thinking.
It's an interesting point. I think we've kind of forgotten that in 2011 and 12, we collected $984,000 in occupancy tax, actually $985 when you round it off. And then a year later, we lost $135,000.
Yes.
And this last year, 2013, this year coming up, well, this year we lost $135,000.
Yes.
And now we project that we're gonna get a $50,000 gain, so we only have to lose $90,000. So we're still in the loss column when it comes to that. So it's that we managed to pull this together, I think is pretty good, considering what we've lost here. So that's actually 2 years' time. It's cost us almost $250,000 in revenue sharing, if you take this year, next year, for the sand that we pay for.
Well, it's a primary concern, at least on my part, and we'll hold off on this budget approval until as late as we can.
So I'll,
I don't anticipate that we're going to meet at 10 PM on June the 30th to approve the budget, nothing like that.
a couple of municipalities did that last year, did this dance.
I know they did.
They sure did.
It's the kind of gamemanship that I don't want to engage in.
So as I understand it, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a presentation the first meeting in May, and you'll have, then call off, the public hearing for it will be in June. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We'll
First
wait a
meeting in
month.
June.
Okay. All right,
I can set that public hearing for right now.
okay, so
We'll set the public hearing for the first meeting in June.
okay.
Does that complete your budget
That
presentation? sir?
completes my presentation for that section, yes, sir.
I congratulate you and the finance officer.
I'd like to thank all department heads and
Good piece of
staff as well.
Yeah, good piece of work.
Could you just tell me one thing, just while we're doing this, I don't know what you're gonna talk about this now, but they require us, or who is the requiree on what state law that says we must spend money on our buildings in order to get a loan?
Well, I could read you the statute, George,
That's
and
all right,
I,
not a problem. No,
okay.
I'm not being I'm just wondering who is the exact party that does that?
the Local Government Commission
Yeah.
in administering the Local Government and Fiscal Control Act. The problem is, we are a small municipality that has limited assets, and there is a statute that prohibits us pledging all our every single asset we have to go into HOC. And so in making improvements to the assets, we're able to still avail ourselves of a loan, even though we're in that situation, is a 5 cents explanation of the statute. But that's the problem we have. If we had other assets that we could pledge, we wouldn't have to worry about that, but we do, well, all we have is town hall and public works. So they're making us, as a part of those loan proceeds, put equity back into it.
The reason why I asked that question is we'll make it public so we understand better. So anybody's up at 3 o'clock in the morning watching this tape, they have that question answered for them.
Yes, sir. And an excellent question. We went round and round about how much we had to, what's the minimum and all that. And so that was a good part of the discussions between the lending institution and local government administration staff, commission staff, excuse me.
Makes sense? Well, roughly.
Yeah.
Could you give Councilman Kowalski a citation to the general statute?
I don't need the citation.
I will,
You got the 5 cents.
I'm gonna give you,
I don't want the book either.
okay, all right.
You wanted a thumbnail.
No, I just think that people should be, because you know how it is, people talk about this and that, and they're doing this and that, and I think it was important to people understand that there's a statute out there that we have to follow in order to
That's
get
right.
this loan, and this is one of the
That's right.
things, so we're not just frivolously spending money because we just want to rock on a porch, this kind of thing.
Our next item is budget amendment, cemetery beautification expenses.
The preface for this budget amendment recommendation is the council's discussion that was held several months ago about the cost, projected cost it would take to beautify the cemetery over and beyond what it was before. We have utilized a lot of money out of the Public Works budget for this year to do what we've done. But now we're at a new spring season, a new summer season, and we want to continue, if it's council's pleasure, with the beautification for the cemetery. So this is a budget amendment request that brings in more funding to Public Works to accomplish what they want to do, what this council had indicated you want Public Works to do for the remainder of this fiscal year, up through June 30. It's basically a request for $6,175
$3,600 would come from cemetery revenue that we've already had this year that was unbudgeted, so we just request that be placed into this, $3,600, which was plot sales. Net plot sales, recall we actually turned a couple back to the owners. And then the difference of $2,575, it's requested that it come out of undesignated fund balance, which the line of the cemetery fund, undesignated fund balance in the audit. Recall there's $40-some thousand in that already. So a total of $6,175 of revenue for this budget amendment, and the expenditures through June 30th, you see there, of beautification, equipment purchase, and some part-time labor, which would carry us through June 30 to continue with the beautification project of the cemetery. This is kind of coupled with the next item that we'll get to on the agenda, which is a budget for next fiscal year, which would start July 1. We had to do it this way because we need money to do this project
You say it's
for
part,
June 30th.
the salaries is part-time labor?
That's part-time, temporary. It would not be anything but by the hour work. There won't be any benefits for that at all.
Contract labor, salaries,
We're gonna put it as a temporary position,
be a temporary position,
temporary position for seasonal
And we will-
work. So it won't be contract.
subject to Social Security.
Just FICA.
FICA's.
It's right in there. That will be the only benefit to take out. So that's the recommendation for this budget amendment. Now, I will say that the part-time labor we will use for other things as well, because they won't be sitting in the cemetery 5 days, 8 hours a day, but we propose to take it out of this funding source.
That's in lieu of contracting it.
That's in lieu of contracting, yes, sir.
Okay. Council, what's your pleasure on this budget amendment number 9?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the budget amendment number 9.
We have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye. All opposed, same sign. It is approved. And the related item, draft cemetery fund budget for the next fiscal year.
Like the capital project sheet with the budget that'll be presented to you at the first May meeting, this will be also a part of that projected budget, or proposed budget. I wanted to give you this for information and comments and concerns as well. So this is a draft cemetery fund proposal for next year. This is the first year that we've actually proposed a budget, a cemetery fund budget. So this is what it'll look like, unless you would like for us to include anything else or take out anything else. For revenues, $9,990 would come out of that undesignated fund balance cemetery fund. Then that we project the sale of lots for next year at $1,000. That is very, very conservative. Hopefully it'll be more than that. We have had a lot of compliments to Public Works for the way the cemetery looks now. So hopefully we will have lot sales, but that's a very conservative figure that we've got tagged on to it for right now. It's the first year we've done a separate cemetery fund budget.
So if you sell more lots than that, the undesignated fund would not have quite as much money removed from it?
We could
Correct.
change it to reflect that, yes, ma'am. That would, exactly. And I just want to make sure everybody knew, again, that cemetery fund and the undesignated fund balance is only $40-some thousand. So if we don't generate these revenues like you talked about, we would continue to draw down, and at some point, we'd have to make a decision how to refund this.
This software license, is that, I know what it is, I know you're trying to put the records on the computer, but is that brand new, or has that been paid this year from someplace else?
Yes, we paid for it this year out of a line that you did a budget amendment on before for administration.
We did that with
Okay.
the purchase of the equipment.
So it's a budget amendment at that
Yes,
point.
ma'am. So the only thing that we have to budget for in the up and coming years is for the license, the software license renewal, it's $450.
Software license, we can't outright buy the software. You still have to license it each year.
Sheila, can you speak to that?
Yes.
The answer is yes, we have to license, pay for the license on an annual basis.
Yes, and it's also,
Thank you.
So that'll be, unless there's anything else y'all would like for us to include in the cemetery fund budget for next year, that'll be what shows up when we present again on May 1st, the first meeting in May.
Okay. Doesn't require any action.
That does not require action,
At
no,
this
sir.
time. And we will be in recess for
Not yet.
8 minutes.
8 minutes.
We'll reassemble at 10:30.
Why are we doing that? Just for
Take a
reset?
break.
Just take a break, okay.
Don't you need a break?
Stretch the legs. The stretcher. Next, we have the consideration of the bid award for the canal maintenance dredging project, and we turn to our town manager.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and council members, we re-advertised this project, this bid solicitation because of the statutory requirement that for formal bidding, we hadn't received, we did not receive, 3 bids the first time. We only received 2 bids, so we re-advertised, and we did receive 3 bids this time, but of course, the statute allows us to just receive 1 bid on the subsequent advertisement. As you can see from the spreadsheet, I guess we don't have this on the screen. Anybody would like to see bids, can certainly come up. We received 3 bids. One was from Carolina Marine Structures of Currituck County. The base bid was $1,800,523, with the alternate as an extra $147,000. Now, let me explain the alternate. The alternate is the back canal, which you have to transit the Trinity Bridge to get to. It runs north to south and confronts a lot of Chickahawk Property Owners Association undeveloped property and goes up to the tennis courts. That is a back canal that we priced in as an alternate just in case we had to do something different. But for these purposes, based on these prices, we just add these 2 together and it all encompasses the 5 miles of canals. So that's why we did it that way. The second opening was Salmon Dredging Incorporated out of Virginia Beach. Their base bid was $1,053,120, coupled with the alternate one of $159,760. The third opening was Ralph Hodge Construction Company out of Wilson County, North Carolina. The base bid was $2,600,000, and the alternate one was $378,000. So you can see that clearly Salmon Dredging Incorporated is the lowest bidder. We have spent the last 5 days doing due diligence on Salmon Dredging Incorporated. They are well known in the industry. They do a lot of work in southeastern Virginia for the municipalities, including the city of Virginia Beach. They do a lot of canal dredging in residential areas in the city of Virginia Beach. They also do dredging for the Corps of Engineers, and they were present, I am informed, by them as well as our engineer at the meetings that occurred when the town of Southern Shores was planning, in the planning stages for its first phase of canal dredging. The Salmon family lives in the Pungo area of Virginia Beach, but they do this for a living, and they're geared up to do this type of dredging, full mechanical dredging in close quarters, and they have passed all the due diligence that we've exercised. We actually had another meeting with them yesterday
I'm satisfied with them, the engineer's satisfied with them, and I would recommend to you that they are the lowest qualified bidder for this project. And if council would like to proceed, I would recommend that you award this bid contingent, however, on the fact that we are to receive local government commission approval for our financing, and that you will also approve the actual financing documents. So we got that contingency. So it is a contingency award. The contractor knows that. He knows we won't sign anything until mid-June, when we finally close on the loan. So if that, I'll try to answer any questions that I can, but basically the schedule we have discussed at council for many times would be what he would start mobilizing in July, August, and September, and he would be ready to dredge when the season opened. And he would get it all done in one season. And of course, this drastically reduces the loan amount that we would have to seek. We would get a new term sheet the 1st of May, but the terms would stay the same as far as interest rate and 7 years. Of course, our payment, as the mayor indicated before, the payment would be substantially reduced, the annual payment of debt service.
So just a side note to this, we did apply for a grant, correct? For this dredging at one point, did we not?
Tom's still here. Did we send in, I don't even think we sent in this calendar year though, did we?
We missed it.
Yeah,
About a month and a half, 2 months. In other words, they closed out the grant request for that season.
Okay.
You thought, we were told that we had time to do it, and we actually got it submitted. I was told after the fact that, we missed it, we didn't get it in for you. Sorry. Given the current climate in Raleigh, I'm 100% certain that the fact that we missed it doesn't matter.
it would not have mattered, and I also got a comment from them afterwards in this budget. The only thing that was in the outgoing governor's budget, proposed budget, and in the incoming governor's proposed budget are federal match projects going through the Division of Water Resources. So this type of project wasn't even in the budget anyway.
Okay, I just wanted to get it out, so we
Yeah.
have an idea what's going on. So this basically comes out to be $1.232 million for this canal dredging of 5 miles, and we did 2.5 miles for 1.7 million, I think, was it 1.7? What did we do, 2.5 for 1.7 roughly? Was that
Is
not the
it
total amount?
1.212, not
212, yeah.
not 232.
Oh, 1.2, I can't add. So 212, okay. So look, I saved just $20,000. So, in the state of, it says, it's a nice, it's actually quite a nice amount of money to have to not worry about the remainder.
The town manager needs action by council before he can proceed with making this award.
Could I have one more question, Peter?
Yes, sir.
Who was the third bidder that came in after the close? Which one of these?
The third bidder, well, these are the 3 bidders.
I know, but you had 2 that you had to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Ralph Hodge Construction was the new bidder on the second go-round. Yes, sir. The high man. Yeah. And I will say that is a joint venture bid. Bird Brothers, who we know well, was associated with that bidder.
And in your due diligence, did you look at for Salmar, is it Salmar?
Salmons.
Do they have any current projects going on that would interfere with them starting up for us?
They wouldn't. They do have current projects, but none that would interfere. We looked at the equipment and the fact that they're so close. I mean, they're just in Pungo, Virginia. It was just like if they're local. So they have the equipment dedicated for it. It was pretty unique in going through it with them. They've got different points located for access, some that we did not think about, some new spots for transfer that we didn't think of, that we did not propose to them, and they had done an overwhelmingly a lot of homework ahead of the bid.
And their trucks that would be hauling this stuff out, they're the type of waterproof trucks that would not spill stuff on the way out?
Yes, sir. And
when we talked about that yesterday, that was first item on the agenda. They are most sensitive to residents. They know the routes, they know the times, et cetera. They gave us examples of the, residential areas in Virginia Beach where they do this and have to meet citizens' concerns as well. And again, Mr. Mayor, I would urge whoever makes a motion to make sure that we get on the minutes that this is a contingent award based on the fact that LGC and the bank closing has to occur before we start this project.
With that being said, council, I would move that we authorize the town manager to make a contingent award of the Phase 2 dredging project to Salmon Brothers in the amount of $1,212,880. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any more discussion on this? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You have your authority.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could make one comment. I would like to recognize to council the fact that Tom Bennett has been working with this project for several years, and of course he was under contract for the town, but I would like to recognize that his interest in this project has never waived, and he has done a lot of work, volunteer on his own time for the town on this, and continues to do that, and has always stepped up to the plate and volunteered and helped and assisted in this project. And without his professional assistance, we would not have been able to vet out a lot of the details on this project. So I just wanted to recognize him, not only the fact that he was under contract for some of it, but he does a lot of volunteer time as well on this project.
And he just left.
Oh, okay.
You still got it in the record.
Okay. Anyway.
It's in the record.
We want it to be in the record clearly, and it's something that the council can follow up on with some special recognition,
Yeah,
don't you think?
I think so. I
Yeah,
think
we
it
will do
behooves us
that.
to have something.
Council, you have been provided a copy of the classification and pay study dated April of 2013. We've had this now in time for a review. Before I turn to the town manager to lead us through this, I would say that if you will open the book. The report recommendations, as stated, I consider are here for the town manager's consideration. Under the tab Policy, Personnel Policy and Benefits Recommendation,
Yes, thank you.
these require our approval, our council approval. And I know that the town manager has scrubbed through them. There's a lot of typographical errors in them that you may have found as you went through. I don't know if you want to lead us through those. Would you like to lead us through those first?
I will real quick, just so y'all know. Again, these are the recommendations for changes in personnel policy based on our discussions and the recommendations from the consultant. The red lines, for the most part, the reds are the recommended changes as you read through it. But I wanted to go through and just call your attention to some areas, typos that we changed or recommend changing. Starting with page 5, section 2, first line.
the town of Southern Shores is an at-will employer. That word should read employer. And if there's anything y'all know of that I've missed, please holler out.
And it's page 5 under the policy tab.
Yeah, we're going to policy now, we're not. Everybody with us?
Where are we, on page 5, the bottom page 5, or the middle one here?
Page 5 at the top, the first red.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
The next one is page 10. Under section 4, the red line there should read, "A trainee shall remain a probationary employee until the training period is satisfactorily completed." The next is page 14. After consultation with the town attorney and the consultant and human resources officer and police chief, my recommendation, we just strike this entire red section. We have a current policy in place already that accommodates this, and this is confusing confusing the issue. So it's our recommendation that that whole section just come out, this red line.
Standby section.
Yes. Next is page 15, the next page. Under job advertisements at the bottom.
Excuse me, Peter.
Yes, ma'am.
If you take out that standby section, I just noticed it's the page before it, 13. They added the word "and standby" into the title heading. so
Yeah,
we
we'll
can-
take that out as
we'll
well.
cross that off.
That comes out as well. Page 13, thank you.
Did you finish 15?
No, sir. Hadn't started yet. Job advertisements, jobs will be, that first BE needs to come out. It needs to read, "Jobs will ordinarily be advertised." Next page, 16, under selection, the last line, it should read, "Human Resources Officer." And then under appointment, the second line down, it should read Human Resources Officer instead of Director.
On that page 16, under application reserve file, it says in the Human Resources Office. Will there be an office, or?
Well, there is a Human Resources Office, and she's got that, there it is, it's called that several places. I mean, we can reword that
That's not a
with the.
problem, I just didn't know, do we
Yeah.
actually have an office, do they want a separate office here for the Human Resource Officer? That'd be key
Well,
listening to.
Administratively, we call it the Human Resources, yeah.
When she's sitting in there doing HR, she's a human resources
Okay.
officer, and that she
Change the sign on the
Right,
outside
and
of the
she's
door.
finance.
Yeah. That's right, okay.
Okay. My next is page 19. Under section 5, employment of relatives, the last sentence, should an immediate family member of a town, it should be town instead of city. And the next is page 22. Under section 11, electronic communications, it should read, "The town maintains," so we'd strike the word "will" and just pluralize "maintains," and electronic communications, social media, internet access policy that guides employees. This policy is, instead of will be, a separate standalone. Next I have is page 25. Last paragraph at the bottom, the first line, it reads, "The town may employ," instead of employee. My next is page 35. Okay, let's see if anybody else has anything. Under disability, section 4, disability, it's not redlined, but it should have been. It should read "the town" instead of "the city."
What page is that?
Page 35. down at the bottom of section 4 disability, it's just the town instead of the city. And that's all the corrections for grammar and spelling that I have been able to glean out of this recommendation to you for changes to the personnel policy.
It's wonderful what passes the inspection of the word processors. If it's a word, it's there.
It's there.
And too many people depend on them making it really right.
Right.
I also see a lot of evidence of cut and paste in it. And that's the way to introduce errors too,
Yeah.
or perpetuate errors. Manager, are there any changes in policy as recommended here that cause you concern?
There are none, Mr. Mayor. When we got these recommendations, I read through them, and most of these are updates with federal law, et cetera, and we also conferred with the town attorney twice on these changes, and I'm satisfied with them and recommend them to you.
Council?
Yeah,
Or
one other
anything you look
Yes.
to?
Page 1 of the index.
Index.
Since you cut out standby pay,
Okay.
it's down near the bottom.
Oh, yes, sure. Page 1,
Right.
strike standby.
So-
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Council, is there anything in here that causes you concern? Hearing none, I will,
If it's of no concern to him, it's not really no concern to me, but the discussion, I mean, we're gonna be following all her recommendations then, is that what we're saying here, or?
Not necessarily.
so-
This is a
all right.
report to you.
Okay.
If you, I mean, it was a report to me. I would take this and make recommendations to you during the year based on her recommendations if I saw fit and felt like I needed to recommend them to you, or you could instigate changes yourself, but we're not I don't recommend you adopt this as this entire report as a initiative policy.
But the policy, I mean, excuse me, yeah, the personnel policy, you want us to. act on
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, the policy set changes I certainly do, but the rest of the report I do not.
that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
We must approve the policy.
Okay, so then.
We must consider the policy changes.
Okay, so the policy changes are, it's basically pages 1 through 45?
Right.
Under the tab policy.
And so that everything in here is acceptable to you to be done the way it is?
Yes, sir.
Including when they talk about what the assistant should be doing and how much splitting of the time and all that stuff is acceptable too?
I am talking about page 1 where the table of contents basically starts.
Policy.
We're only talking about the policy tab.
Well, I think he's referring to.
I have a policy tab here and I have 44 pages in it.
Okay.
So I'm talking about the 44 pages in here, right here, this pile of paper.
Where in there does it talk about like an administrative expense?
Well, they talk
hours?
about, then they not talk about here about the recommendation, administrative specialist, take on more responsibility
In
and.
those are the recommendations to management. It's just starting here on the index
Okay.
page through 45.
Right, where we start on this page.
So one, so none of this is then in this
Right.
thing
No,
we don't
sir.
worry
Correct,
about.
and those
Okay.
are recommendations to the manager.
So then we get to, so then that means that, if I get this correctly in my mind, that means that all the red stuff is incorporated and it'll be used and no longer will be read and it'll be followed.
That's correct.
So consequently, one day she discusses, and there's a discussion of, here in one of these pages regarding disciplinary suspensions, and she redefines that, and what that means, that'll be incorporated and placed in there, in this manual, so that's what's gonna be.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha,
Then
okay.
it'll be distributed to all the employees.
So all of this in red is then in these pages are acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all
With the changes, that's
right. That's for the change.
grammatical and
Right.
taken out. Yes, sir.
Council, Council, I would move approval of the recommended changes to the Town of Southern Shores personnel policy as contained in the classification and base study of April 2013 under the policy tab, specifically pages 1 through, what's it? 1 through 45. Will that cover it for you, Town Manager?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same side. It is done. Council, we have two resolutions here. Both of them were called to our attention by the county. County Board of Commissioners acted on these recently. The first were under the consent agenda, but I thought maybe, given the subject language, that the council member may have some direct comments to make, and we should do it under new business. What is your pleasure with respect to the resolution 2013-0402 with reference to subsurface injection of fracking waste in eastern North Carolina?
Well, given the fact that fracking is legal, and given the fact that the state, if you read that what comes through them, they're all for it and want to speed everything up. And given the fact that injecting waste into an aquifer is something, and when you don't know where the aquifer is going and what's happening, which in turn may affect numerous people, I think this is an important thing. I don't think it's a discussion of whether one believes in fracking or not, because it's been passed that there's going to be fracking. I think the issue here is that the injection of wastes into groundwater when you don't know where this groundwater going is the ultimate issue. I think here is the main issue, which can only be commented on, and I think that needs to be addressed by the legislature. So that's how I look at that.
Given your remarks, would you like to move to approve it?
Yes, I'd like to move to approve the resolution 2013-04-02.
We have a second.
Second.
Is there anyone else would like to speak to it?
Well, I happened to catch that hearing from the county on Channel 20 and watch the whole thing. And I think the issue was that the fracking that happens in the Piedmont, which is the hard surface area of North Carolina, the legislature or the people that live there want to take that fracking waste and bring it out to the coast, which is in the coastal plain, a sandy area, because it dissipates it more readily. And of course, all 20 coastal counties is highly opposed to it, which I would be highly opposed to it as well. If they want to do something with their fracking waste, keep it within 50 miles of where they're doing the fracking is really the
If you want the
consensus
benefits of
of the
fracking, you
legislature.
should also take the negative sides of
That's
fracking
correct.
too.
That's correct. So,
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, may I make one comment for y'all? Notwithstanding that we have zoning in place in the town of Southern Shores that would consider this commercial activity, it is, I've noticed that there are a lot of deeds from the original developer that reserve mineral rights in this town. So that's just an observation. That's how a lot of people in Lee County got in trouble with being, having their mineral rights reserved when they acquired their property, even small properties, as small as a lot. So that is here in Southern Shores, believe it or not. You got people who own property subject to mineral rights being retained by the original developer, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that coal mine I have my backyard. I've been panning weekly panning for gold. It doesn't work out very well.
don't plan future travel on,
That's right,
based
no.
on that, George. Any other comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, it's approved. And the other has to do with hunting on Sunday. The resolution is before the North Carolina Senate as a bill to permit hunting on Sunday, something that they can't do now.
Actually, looking into this, were we ready for discussion or?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was looking this over, the way this resolution is written, it's sort of like motherhood and apple pie. But if you actually look at it a little deeper, for one thing, I was surprised to find out that the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission actually endorses the bill. To open up.
have hunting on Sunday?
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing I thought was odd, and that's one reason why it really caught my eye, was this mention of a 2006 survey by Virginia Tech. It just didn't seem to be quite right to me. Some of the other facts that I ran across, looking at this, and from independent sources, not from any group opposing or promoting Sunday hunting. North Carolina is only one of 11 states that bans hunting on Sunday, except there is hunting, a certain type of hunting. You can bow hunt and conduct falconry on Sundays on private properties, with the exception of falconry, which can be done on public land. Also, there's exemptions in North Carolina for military or U.S. government-owned properties.
What I don't understand, you said, so you're saying, the General Assembly thing, I'm not General Assembly, the North Carolina Resource Commission, you say, wants to have hunting on Sunday, yet somehow they got this survey, they commissioned this survey from Virginia Tech, which told them that 65% do not want legalized hunting on Sunday. Is that what we're saying here?
That's,
Is
if
that
you,
what
if
you're
you look,
saying?
if you'll check, for example, the Daily Advance did an article on this I just ran across this morning. And, there are other ways in which, for example, the Wildlife Resources Commission looked at other factors like hunters who actually go to other states to hunt on Sunday rather than hunt within North Carolina. The attraction, the revenues that come from outside states to those states that allow hunting on Sunday. We're between two states right now that I believe both South Carolina and Virginia do not allow hunting on Sunday. I'm assuming that they expect some more activity in North Carolina from those states, rather than the revenue going to Tennessee, Kentucky, or even the western states. This places limitations, as you well know, even fishing here. If you work during the week and you only have a weekend off, you plan to go fishing on Saturday, it might not turn out to be the best day to go fishing. You have the alternate, which they don't restrict fishing on Sunday, so you could go Sunday instead. Hunters don't have that option currently in the state of North Carolina. It's something that's been proposed since, for 2 or 3 years prior. I guess it's just the first time it's actually gotten into the form of a Senate bill. That's about all I have to say about it. On top of that, it might qualify the fact that I have not held a hunting license since 1984, although I was a hunter safety instructor for the Wildlife Commission before that. When I came to the Outer Banks, I just did not see the opportunities to hunt that I was used to.
Do you understand this last thing about the addition of the Sunday waterfowl hunt would reduce the season up to 9 days? Do you understand what that means? Because I have no idea what that means.
I'm not a waterfowl hunter. I don't know what the process is there. They may have a specific number of days that you're allowed to hunt, in which case it would reduce the season, but it would also not eliminate, if you're allowed to hunt on Sunday, it wouldn't eliminate those days, it would just reduce the season length.
And why would it do that? Because there's X number of days you're only allowed to hit a, shoot
All,
a duck?
all, virtually every species except, I believe coyotes and possums have a specific season in which you're allowed to hunt. Outside of that period of time, you're not allowed to hunt.
True, I
whether it's a
understand. I understand that,
Whether
but
it's a Saturday or Sunday.
So is the thinking process here is because you have only X number of days you're allowed to
I
shoot
really
waterfowl,
can't-
so
I can't
therefore you're adding
speak.
the additional days of the week, so this, you can, I mean, so that the ends are reduced, the end reduces, but you still have the same number of days in the scheme of things?
That's,
Is that the
I-
rationale here?
I am making an assumption there, I cannot speak
That's the way I read it.
That-
accurately to that.
That's
Like
true.
shoot little ducks here somewhere?
Yeah.
Do you do that?
That's the case. Federal.
Okay.
They have their season is regulated differently as opposed to the state.
So
Okay.
their season might be like 14 days instead of 3 weeks, and if we put Sundays in, yeah, exactly.
I guess really a reasonable analogy would be the federal regulations on striped bass. They set the specific number of
Right.
days you can fish from this date to that date. Perhaps, and when it comes to waterfowl, they would reduce it in order to reduce the number of opportunities that you have to go.
And since you can't discharge a firearm in the town of Southern Shores and go hunting around the place, it really doesn't
It
make any
doesn't have
difference to
any
this
impact
town,
here.
impact whatsoever, right?
And I did check on that. I was curious because the reference in here to the current ban protects rural churches from disruptions that might be caused by Sunday hunting.
Singlet.
Which I've lived in rural areas in North Carolina until I came to Southern Shores. The situation is there's no restriction on the discharge of firearms in the state of North Carolina on any day.
Yeah.
As long as it's legal where you're doing it. For example, private property, a gun range, public lands that might be set up as a gun range, like Camp Butner.
Or the Point Golf Course where there's somebody shooting continually shotgun and handgun in that place on Sundays.
I can't attest to that, but
I can.
there
I'm trying to
are
find
no restrictions. There are ordinances, for example, in towns and cities
Right.
that govern that.
I don't know, I kind of think that the folks that this affects the greatest should be worrying about it the most, and it doesn't affect us at all. And we don't even know what this is, ultimately all about, so.
Based on what I've found looking into this, I can't support it. It looked like a good idea initially, but the more I looked at it, the more I questioned the necessity.
I've been watching this bill and any other that may come for the concern out of backlash on somebody trying to ban the current allowance of bow hunting and crossbow hunting on Sunday, and if that would ever affect the municipal archery program. So that's the only reason I've been watching it, and that has not come up on the radar screen yet, because as you know, that program is one that we could avail ourselves of here for culling a deer herd in the future if you wanted to. But that has not popped up as a backlash on here, so we're just watching it.
When I saw this, I was curious about what prompted it in the first place. And I right away thought of the gun people, the hunters, that they really wanted it, they wanted the extra day. But what you just said tells me that it's probably more a tax notion that's probably pushing it right now, because you said to be.
Well, that was one of the aspects that I read that the commission looked into, and that was revenue, yes.
Yeah. I guess I don't have a problem with the resolution. I guess I don't have a problem with it because I'm thinking again of the safety. It doesn't affect us directly, but when I saw that thing about rural churches, I was thinking like, I don't know, Stumpy Point, Wanchee, some of those places that are really wooded, but there are little churches along the way. They were concerned about safety, whether it happens or not, I don't know. Most of these things you never know.
Guess we ought to call the question.
You have any comments? Did we have a motion to approve this?
No, we did not have a motion.
I can make a motion to approve it just to get the discussion.
Somebody want to second it?
Larry?
Okay. Do we want to talk about it further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We have 3-2. Councilman Sanders and Kowalski voted against the resolution. Council 13 years ago in this room Town Council took a position on the matter of the Mid-Currituck Bridge, and we created or was certainly a party to the creation of the Build the Bridge, Preserve Our Roads Committee. And that committee has been fighting the battle along with the towns and others for 13 years, and the battle continues. The minimal amount of funding, I think it's $25 million, that needs to be included in the state budget, is in danger. The Build the Bridge, Preserve Our Roads Committee and other players have undertaken an initiative, a fresh initiative, to make sure that the legislature knows how we feel about it over here in eastern North Carolina. And Jerry Sullivan is with us. And Jerry, would you mind joining us at the table? Jerry, I think you were an original member of the committee.
I was one of the original members. This town is responsible for how far we have gotten so far.
And at one time, you chaired the committee, did you not?
Yeah, I was chairman of the committee. We formed a nonprofit. We have 9 board members. One of the good things we did was we decided that Southern Shores couldn't do it alone. So we brought in the town of Duck, and at that point, the county commissioners weren't ready to commit up there, so we got a grassroots initiative in Currituck. We recruited about 800 members, raised funds, and have been fighting that battle ever since. At one point, when the toll authority was created and it looked like our project was getting blocked, we formed a coalition with the towns, Southern Shores being one of them, put some money together and funded a lobbyist. And we were able to get, I think it was a couple $2 million for ECU, because the state NCDOT was trying to take money that had been
Call from Nancy
designated
Warren.
and put it somewhere else. So we were able to do that and get it off ground center. Where the project stands today is, the environmental impact statement is waiting to be released, and the holdup is really to see what's happening in the North Carolina legislature. Now, I've heard through the grapevine from different people that the bridge is dead. It's not quite dead. As you know, it's in jeopardy of being shut down by the legislature, and Currituck County has been extremely active in meeting with public officials in the state and doing an assessment of what is needed to try to save the project. Peter Bishop is in charge of Currituck Planning, and our board asked him to come down about 2 weeks ago and meet with us and discuss what needed to be done, and they put a proposal on the table. First of all, they've been in touch with the legislators discussing what's the best course of action. And their assessment is, and I think everybody knows that, it's been in the paper, right now the Senate is lined up against toll projects. Their perception is that toll bridges should not occur because that's taxation without representation. Even though in our state, you don't put in a toll project unless there's an alternate route, so people can make the best economic decision. And having a toll bridge in Currituck, quite frankly, would save people a lot of money and time getting down here.
Isn't it true, using that logic,
yeah.
we shouldn't have any tolls on ferries?
Ferries,
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
That makes sense.
They're sort of in conflict with
Well,
themselves.
they actually have a proposal, by the way, to eliminate all ferry tolls.
Eliminating all its ferry tolls.
Yeah, and then, of course, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna keep all those ferries. Governor McCrory's budget still includes the bridge and gap funding. Speaker Tillis has been supportive of the bridge, and I'm sure you know that Representative Pine is as well. And we're hearing that Tillis is rumored to run for Hagan seat 2014, so he's going to need people over in our area supporting him if he's going to have a successful run. The decision on whether our bridge is in or out will be made by the end of June when the budget comes out. If they can all the toll projects and say that there will be no toll projects in North Carolina, we're going to be put up against all the other projects, and of course, the cost of this project, as you know, is over 30 years, is $500 million, and we're not gonna make it. So, we're either gonna build the bridge will either be in business successfully or unsuccessfully, just probably through the end of this year. We need to provide as much support as we can for Tillis and let him work on the House to kill the Senate provision. We need to put pressure on McCrory to leave the funding in the budget. We need to target other House swing votes, and that includes people on the budget committee. Now, Peter Bishop and Jim Murphy, and there's an organization called DC Advocacy, that's in Washington, D.C. Jim Murphy is a property owner up in Corolla, so he's very interested in making sure this bridge succeeds. But DDC Advocacy is a firm that actually helps organizations use the people's power to get to the government. And they've been pretty successful in it. Peter and Jim Murphy came to us with a proposal to launch a robust grassroots advocacy effort over the next 60 to 90 days. This would include personalized letters, and that means not just from Duck and Southern Shores, because they say they keep track of who communicates with them, but we need to pull in other counties in the area and other people. Town hall meetings with House representatives, and if we bring the representative here, we need to make sure not only if we support financially at all, but we need to make sure we support it as a town and make sure that we get the people out in numbers. Coordination of key constituents. Now, their estimate was that it was gonna cost $100K to do this. ACD Drago is the company that was gonna build the bridge, and they're willing to match whatever is raised locally. Now, Build the Bridge, Preserve Our Roads has already committed 10,000. Duck and the town of Duck and the Duck Business Alliance have also each committed 5. The county of Currituck has come up with, they've come up with between them 15, I think, and we're up to 40. They're working on the Currituck Chamber of Commerce as well, because this is becoming a Currituck project. We would hope that Southern Shores would make some sort of nominal commitment to show that we're in this for the long haul. And of course, we'll also be coming to you and requesting you to provide the communications and support that we need to pull out of our community as well. When we started this project, we went out and had people in this town fill out cards. We had like a 98% in support of building the bridge and not widening our roads. So I'm asking you to provide some level of support for this effort. I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
I'm curious as to what involvement, if any, are we seeing from Dare County?
I have not been to the county commissioners, but I could make the trip. I have talked to Warren Judge in the past, and I've been sending him over the past year, anytime we send out a we want people to respond. I've been getting in touch with him.
Have, the Currituck commissioners have not been in touch with them, you know. Might be good for them to do something.
I think they may have very well been doing that. That's a question I'll need to go back and ask Peter Bishop.
Because then it shows a joint
Yeah.
commitment from both
Yeah.
counties.
The other thing is with this advocacy effort, we're talking about hiring a local project manager to work on getting the town session set up and getting the people here, coordinated to go over, to do the letter writing to Raleigh. They're saying emails are fine. Right now, we need letters, and we need letters from people. They're talking, they need to get like about 500 personal letters written, and probably from people and businesses where these guys may listen. Our people can write letters too, but they said they sort of track who has written in the past, so me writing, and I've written so many letters and sent so many emails, won't count as much as getting somebody new to do it.
Peter, when's the state budget have to be done by?
I'm sorry.
The state budget, I'm trying to remember, because they're running full gun now to get a budget together and pass that budget, so what's their deadline for the state? It
They-
just sounds like a big, huge
They have
operation here, and-
they have a self-imposed deadline,
Right.
so I think it's June something.
I have,
Middle
the
of
final
June.
push is probably June the 15th, because we haven't broken into phases. They've already started, by the way. April 15th to April 21 is constituent recruitment and a blind ID program and field team engagement. They're going to be polling a lot of people and asking if they would write would be willing to communicate in writing, but this group would actually write the letter for them, send them into them in with the stamped envelope, so we make sure the letters get in as opposed to relying on somebody taking the time. April 22nd to May 18th is the grassroots and grass tops outreach. That would be where we would work to get our people to actually get the letters in. And we're talking about 500 letters. Grassroots opportunities and continued mobilization with bringing them down here for sessions would be from May 19th through June the 7th. And the final push is June 8th to the 15th. And at that point, we may be sending out and asking people to make phone calls. You know how they send out the robocall, please get into this, click into the office. But, but the timeframe, it looks like, is like mid-June when it's gonna be done. So we can't wait.
I noticed on the town website, on the homepage, we have a message. When did that go on?
That went on about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's in response to Senate Bill 10, that is the Senate bill that would kill the project if
I
it were
haven't
passed.
seen it on the Facebook page.
It was on there,
Is it on there?
Yes, sir.
I missed it.
yeah.
Well, the question is, council, do we want to contribute to this effort in some financial way? And the town of Duck, I talked to Mayor Kingston last night, and they were unanimous as a council in appropriating $5,000 to the effort. And I would move that the town of Southern Shores, town council of the Southern Shores, authorize $5,000 be appropriated to this effort.
Second.
We have a second.
Second.
We need to talk about it further. Are you ready to vote? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have it.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're
Thank you,
ready for the
Jerry.
final battle.
And Jerry, thank you for 13 years.
Oh.
I-
Yeah, I've got a few gray hairs in that time.
I-
Some from the bridge, some from just getting older.
I remember the beginning. I remember the Southern Shores people who have worked on that committee. Harold Baya who is now deceased, was a very valuable member. from Currituck County, we had a person who worked that committee and chaired it for years, who's no longer with us, Gwen Cruikshank. She did exemplary service. Our current representatives, our town's current representatives to the committee, Mr. Jerry, of course, and Robert Palumbo, which I think we all know, and Bill Cogger. Bill Cogger lives on Gingoy Trail, and was a longtime member of the Civic Association, served as an officer in the Civic Association. So we have 3 powerful members on the committee, and please give the committee our regards and express how much we appreciate the work they're doing.
Thank you, thank you. And hopefully we'll have a successful budget coming out of our state.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Jerry.
Exact name of the nonprofit.
Our nonprofit is Build the Bridge, Preserve the Roads.
Comma Inc.
Yeah, incorporated. We're incorporated in the state of North Carolina.
Need to know that.
Would you be the payee of this $5,000?
We're going to have, I'll get that information to you, because I think we're gonna have DBC Advocacy handle the money.
We would need to write a check to the nonprofit, Mr. Mayor, to build the bridge,
Okay.
yeah.
You go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
How about I send you an email with them? But it's Build the Bridge, Preserve Our Roads, Inc.
And it is a 501c3.
Right.
Free. Because I got us incorporated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Council.
Town manager, you.
Yeah, just briefly, we're well underway on the Honeysuckle Trail Street Improvement Project. I'm going to leave here today. I'm going to go back over there and make sure hopefully we'll start, they've started demolition today. The tree removal occurred over the last 10 days. Fern Drive will be started this week, the entrance to Fern Drive, the project you approved. And also, we've authorized a smaller sub-project of that with the dip in the road there in Juniper Trail. We're going to incorporate that into that project since it's so close. Also, DOT has authorized RPC to go ahead and put curbs on the Trinity Bridge. So hopefully all that will occur at the same time in the next week, I hope. So we're pushing for that. I went over the lifeguard schedule with the council, so that's upcoming. We're excited about the opening of the season. And that's pretty much my report. I did want to say, Mr. Mayor, I know council is going into closed session, and myself and the Human Resources Officer would remain for part of that, if we could.
One question,
Yeah.
you know, way back when the DOT was supposed to put those things on the crosswalks
Mhm.
in the guy's office, and he was apologetic because he didn't get a chance to get to it, yada, yada, yada. Could we check to see whether they're still lying in his office, and he might get to it at some point? It's been
We'll
like
keep pushing him.
6 weeks of it lying in his office.
Well, he figures he's got to Memorial Day.
Okay.
We will keep
Probably
making
is,
that
but-
respectful correct request of DOT.
Could we have, or is it in the program to have those curbs over the Trinity Trail Bridge painted with some reflective paint, white? What's your recommendation, Chief?
I would definitely recommend some kind of like
White or yellow?
Okay, we'll
Could,
talk about that.
Could
Yeah,
we
I'll see if we can
incorporate
do
that?
that.
it's a very frustrating bridge. Is that it, sir?
Yes, sir.
I don't have anything, council. You?
Well, yes, just a comment. The, South Shores Realty recently held its annual spring fling for their property owners, which includes both resident and non-resident property owners, and I was kind of pleased to hear from several of those property owners, words of appreciation and, positive comments about our videos. Several of those property owners are following our activities and feel that it's very much a worthwhile effort.
Good. Good to hear. Larry, you have
I have
anything?
nothing, thank you.
Jody?
I just have one thing. I'm going to the first Shorelines Management Committee meeting that's been held since, I don't know, a long time ago, last summer, before that. And it's basically, it's going to be probably a very complicated, maybe even a very long meeting, because Duck has beach nourishment plans, Kitty Hawk has beach nourishment problems, Kildouble Hills is working on their situation. You've all read what's going on in Rodanthe down on Hatteras Island, and there's only a certain pot of money. So the interesting discussion is gonna be where they go from here. And some of the things I've heard is there may potentially be some policy changes. In fact, you alluded to that a little bit earlier, so I'll let you know what happens in the meeting.
Now for sand fencing,
Pardon?
just for sand fencing now, that whole.
Yeah,
what fund?
yeah.
Council, I move we go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A6 to discuss certain personnel matters, and we're in recess for 5 minutes.